Callum, you'll know more about this than I will. World of Warcraft's latest expansion, is it Dragonflight?
Yeah.
Gotcha. The one where they looked at Guild Wars 2 and went, that's a pretty good mount system.
Yeah.
Let's take that. Talk me through Dragonflight.
It has been the best and worst thing that's happened to me this week. Best thing because it looks like they have actually taken like valid criticism of all their systems, and they've gone through and thought, you know what, the players actually know what they're on about. We'll bring back the old talent system because it's what everybody wanted. And this is the main issue that people have had with WoW. They call it the borrowed power system, where the best example is they dig a hole with an expansion, and then at the end of the expansion they fill it back in before digging the next hole. So they give you this power, then you forfeit it at the end of the expansion, then you regain it again over and over. And they've said that they want to go back to vanilla, where your progress through multiple expansions feels meaningful and like compounding from every decision you make, which is brilliant. That's the purpose of the RPG element, right?
Yeah, borrowed power, parasitic design. Some people call it content islands. So here's a perfect example. Was it in Legion where you got the Legion weapons?
The artifact weapons, yes.
That was the one. So you start the Legion expansion, you get the artifact weapons, you build them up to be super powerful, and then at the end of the expansion, everyone has their power drained from their artifact weapons in order to effectively cleanse the massive sword that Sargeras has stabbed the planet with. So when the next expansion starts, you are back to being less powerful because you've drained your artifact power.
Exactly.
People in the chat are like, what sword? What sword? Didn't even happen. What sword?
Yeah.
No, it's...
Pulls rug over sword, someone in my chat says.
Yeah, just put a big sheet over it and just... It's nothing. Don't worry about it, okay? That is a perfect example of, like, the DM forgetting what's been happening in the game.
Yeah.
But the DM is Blizzard.
They do that a lot.
Yeah, someone's gone, hey, well, what happened to that massive sword that Sargeras stabbed the planet with? Don't worry about it. It's fine. We've fixed the planet's wounds with Azerite. We have drained the artifact weapons to fix it. In fact, World of Warcraft story is something I want to talk to you about in a second, but borrowed power. The idea that an expansion starts, you get powerful, the expansion ends, you get weak again, which means there's no real continuity between the previous expansion and the next one, and that's what I think really irritates people. So how's Dragonflight been for the continuity aspect?
I think continuity is being slightly thrown to the wayside because they realise it's an issue they can't fix now. But I think they're treating Dragonflight as a clean slate. And I hope they do, because there's that many issues that have been built up. They're not going to fix them. If they fix them, they're just putting a band-aid on it, right? And what's good for story in this sense is not good for gameplay. If they fix all those things, it'll be a hodgepodge of just tied off loose ends. So with the dragon story being something that's been loosely in the background all these years, I think they could take this and run with it as a clean slate, fresh start. This could be the redemption arc of WoW. I genuinely think it could be.
Because Final Fantasy is going through its new expansion, so a new story is not an unheard of thing. But how's World of Warcraft done? How have the community been taking this?
The community seem to be over the moon about it. Now, it's hard to tell because since the sexual harassment allegations and stuff, their videos have all been dislike bombed into oblivion, right? Now, normally it's like 80% dislikes on their videos, but now it's about like 70% likes, which to me says that they're winning people back over and they're showing good faith in doing the right thing this time.
People have
whether they do it or not.
Yeah, very short memory, isn't it? The mob mentality has a very intense but very short lifespan. So when people get really angry about something and really passionate about something, you'll find that it lasts for about 3 months and then dies down. I mean, there are people still campaigning for the whole Coney 2012 thing. Child soldiers in the jungle, and people were like, "That's 2012, didn't that happen?" Like, no, it's still going on. It's just that once the 3 months has happened, no one cares anymore.
I think the turning point for the Coney 2012 thing might have been the fate of it masturbating in public in front of kids. That could have been the issue. That
didn't help. No one can deny that wasn't a positive for the movement. But the idea that any outrage-based movement has about 3 months worth of energy, because the mob don't like to focus on one thing. The mob like to be outraged. So what happens is you'll find something to be annoyed at, everyone's annoyed at it, and then 3 months later everyone's annoyed at something different.
Something I was going to say, when we were at Insomnia, Rage said to me, there's a new expansion coming out for WoW. Do you raid or anything? I was like, I used to do some very, very high-end raiding. And she was like, we're looking for new members for the guild. And I was like, nah, not really my thing. this announcement dropped, and I DM'd Rage, and I was like, "You still got that space?" And I restarted my subscription and have power leveled pretty much to max level in 2 days.
Yep. Yeah, I thought a lot. Kira TV, he's said exactly the same on his Discord. They've got their claws back into him. I'm kind of thankful that I started World of Warcraft in the Battle for Azeroth phase, so my first experience of it was shit. So I don't really have nostalgia.
Did you say Battle for Azeroth?
Yeah.
Right, you joined at the worst time possible.
I did. I would
say either now or when the new expansion comes out or the pre-patch for it, give it another chance, because for all the shit that people throw at WoW, there are good elements there.
Yeah.
And in fact, literally last night, we were talking about how we want the player controller to feel for Nightmare World, and a lot of people hadn't played WoW, and I was like, right, I'm pitching that we have like WoW style controls. Try it and you'll see what I mean. They all jumped in and they were just like, oh my god, I have never played with a player controller that feels this natural and good.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of good elements there, and hopefully this expansion will fix the bad ones.
Yeah, World of Warcraft has a lot of really good ideas, but this is something that I want to discuss with you specifically. A lot of people say that World of Warcraft started to go downhill after Wrath of the Lich King, when Cataclysm came in. People give a lot of reasons for this, things like Group Finder being added, which I think is both a positive and a negative. It's a positive for allowing people to find content, and it's a negative for potentially
no community now.
Yeah, fragments the community. But here's a notion that I want to put out to everyone in the chat and everyone that knows anything about World of Warcraft or storytelling. And Cal, you can give me your opinion on this as well. Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, Reign of Chaos, started the story of Arthas.
Yeah.
Wrath of the Lich King finished the story of Arthas.
Yeah.
Do you think the reason World of Warcraft dropped a lot of interest after Wrath of the Lich King is simply because, as far as a narrative, portion goes, it was done. The story had been told. The main story that people were invested in had ended.
Yes. So I think that was part of the problem, and WoW tried to come up with a solution to that, which sounds great in concept. So they always had this one story, the big bad, for each expansion, and they realized, okay, we need somebody who doesn't just enjoy this icy, frosty Lich King story to move on to the next story, the fiery god. So they started having overlapping stories where halfway through one expansion, a loose end would pop up and start a story that would span to halfway through the next expansion. So you'd have these kind of like, imagine like a video track where there's overlapping tracks on both layers all the way across. So that you're never at the end and the start of a story. If you are, you're in the middle of the other story. And while that sounds great in concept, they couldn't manage it.
No.
Like, they really couldn't. They neglected one story, which means it was useless. And this is where all the loose ends came from. Because they were like, okay, players weren't invested. After halfway through that story, let's let it fizzle out. But I think the biggest issue that started around Wrath was borrowed power. Your talent system changed to all these talents that you earn, and then next expansion, there's new talents, and you earn them all again, and again, and again. And the gear stopped being a linear treadmill and became like a repeating treadmill, right? So you've said this before, it's not an expansion, it's a replacement of the existing thing, but you have to start over. That was the issue, and that was the issue for me as well. It was just tiring. It became a chore.
Yeah, because World of Warcraft, as opposed to a lot of other MMORPGs at the time, was such a story narrative-driven game. People wanted to know the fate of Arthas. People wanted to know the fate of the world and the fate of Azeroth. They cared about these characters. They cared about these people. And I think the trap that Blizzard fell into was they told a story, they told a story, they told a story, they finished the story. And when you finish a story, there's a lot of energy that gets depleted. The viewer is happy. It's done. It's told. It's finished. If you keep saying to the viewer, okay, and now this happens, and now this happens, and now this happens, it's very difficult to keep someone's attention if the story doesn't end. I like to give an example of the TV show Supernatural. I think Supernatural has 5 fantastic seasons. I think the first 5 seasons of Supernatural tell a perfect story. It was always intended to be a 5-season thing, and then after that, it kind of, you can tell that they know that the characters are popular, the world is popular, the lore is popular, and so they're trying to just shoehorn in stuff for you to care about. Someone in the chat has just said the Simpsons syndrome. You know what? Absolute spot on. The Simpsons told a lot of great character arcs. One of the best character arcs in the Simpsons, without a doubt, Sideshow Bob. Sideshow Bob has such a phenomenally beautiful character arc, and then when they ran out of stories to tell, the characters become almost hollow frameworks to just push stories onto and use them as vehicles to progress. Do you feel that World of Warcraft lost its narrative focus and just became a series of systems to make gamers sit down and play?
Yes, and in fact, Kurdo in my chat has nailed it. Every new expansion of WoW is literally its own spin-off, and that's true. They all exist in the same universe, but there's no continuity between the two anymore.
Yeah,
it's odd.
And how have because I can think of one game that has faced this same problem and absolutely nailed how to deal with it, and that was Guild Wars 1. Did you ever play Guild Wars 1, Cal?
Long time ago, when it was current.
So, for anyone in the chat who hasn't played Guild Wars 1, the expansions of Guild Wars 1 don't necessarily follow on from the exact story of the previous. What they do is they start a brand new story. And when you start a new expansion, you can start a new character at level 1 and go through and play again. And then when a new expansion comes out, it's a new character at level 1, you carry on through. So you don't need to have played Prophecies to go and enjoy Factions, or to enjoy Nightfall, or to enjoy Eye of the North. It was really, really clever the way they've done it. I think Guild Wars 2 is very similar in that aspect. World of Warcraft right now has so much lore behind it, and it's been retconned so many times. You're going to have to help me organise my thoughts in this, Cal. When a new player is exposed to the World of Warcraft for the first time, they hear the epic stories like Arthas, like the Burning Crusade, like Sargeras, like the Pandas, and then when they actually play the game, they realise that the epic stories they've been told have nothing to do with the game as it is now.
Yeah. In fact, I remember how I got into WoW. One of my friends at college was telling me, he was a massive nerd, played it non-stop, and he was telling me about how he just got the legendary mage staff, like the dragon-headed staff. I can't remember what it was called, like Syndracosa's something, I don't know. He was going on about the fact that only 6 people have that staff. And for some reason, to me, that was epic, knowing that there were 14 million players and only 6 people currently had it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then I played as the new expansion started, and I wanted to get that staff. That was kind of like my goal, you know? I want to be one of those 7 people now with that staff. And everyone now had it, because the gap between the expansions made that previous important thing so unimportant.
It's almost...
And even though that wasn't a story, it was more of like a player legacy thing, right? That still crushes that player legacy and makes everything you did up until this point utterly worthless.
Do you think one of the personal achievement angle is, many years ago, if you logged on to play World of Warcraft and you got something rare, you thought that that might be rare for many, many years. It's part of your personal legend and your personal tale. It's your character's story. Now, because people have seen how this borrowed power system works, when you log on to play World of Warcraft, or when you play an expansion, you know in the back of your mind everything you do is going to be relevant and important for about the next year or two. And then a new expansion comes out and everything you've done is now not relevant and not important again. And to go back to the idea of these original expansions being super impressive and super important and people caring, people still really care about Invincible, the mount that you can get from... killing Arthas. That's got such a legend to it. It's got such a cult status as an icon. People consider it the best mount, or the Ashes of Allah, the one that you can get from killing Kel'Thas repeatedly. I can't think of anything that new or non-WoW players would care about as much in these new expansions.
Yeah, there's honestly nothing. It's like the legendary system was an amazing system, right? These legacy items that you'd see someone with it and you'd be like, wow, like I've seen 2 of those ever. But then they added that everybody can get a legendary because some people wanted it but didn't get it, which, that's the point of a legendary item. If everybody has it, it's not legendary.
Yeah.
So now they had these legendary items that everybody could get, but you could only get 1 of 10 for your class. So then the issue became, well, that guy's got the best legendary for Windwalker Monk. I'm stuck with the shitty one. I want that. So then they let you re-roll which legendaries you get and get multiple. So it's kind of, the way Blizzard's doing this is kind of odd, because they're giving something desirable, but then making it not desirable because everybody has it. Because something's only desirable if nobody has it, right?
Yeah, the rarity matters.
Yeah, so they've really ruined it.
And I don't know if you've looked in, but I was reading Massively OP, one of the MMORPG news sites earlier. Apparently, Activision Blizzard's earnings over the last quarter have plummeted.
Oh,
Like,
it's abysmal.
It has gone. I've got the page up here. Let me just bring this up and have a look, see what we've got. But they have gone down. Okay, Q1 report. Blizzard have lost 2 million players.
And they only had 6 million at the height of last year.
Yeah.
So they've lost a quarter of their players at least in 1 month. We don't know if it's lower than that. People are estimating what their current players are, and they're estimating around 2.5 to 3 million.
So that the Q1 income from last year and the Q1 income from this year, that is a decrease of 145 million. Basically, there's a 43% year-on-year drop-off of Activision Blizzard's income, and it doesn't seem to be recovering. They have lost so many players, and some people will say it's because of the pandemic. Everyone was inside, everyone was playing World of Warcraft at the time, Shadowlands was really good. Is it just me? This is me coming from like a non-World of Warcraft fanatic. I've played the game, but I'm not super clued up on it. Has Shadowlands just stopped mattering? Like, that kind of came and went, and no one really cared.
There's something Blizzard have been doing in recent expansions, and I'm really not sure why. They have been having content droughts that have been lasting 8 months at a time. And Warlords of Draenor was the worst. There was a 13-month content drought with no updates. And so you've got these players that are trying to run on this treadmill that doesn't exist, and they wonder why people are quitting. I don't know if they've downsized and everybody's focused on the next expansion as soon as the first one releases, or what, but there's something not right.
Let me try and give them what I believe, and this is something, again, I think is really, really, really important right up to Battle for Azeroth. And I've said this before on stream, but I want to get your specific opinion, and everyone in chat, I want your feedback on this as well. World of Warcraft do something amazing with their box art and their titles of expansions. They use the box art and the title to tell a story. And even if you don't know the game, you can pick up the box, read the box art, look at the picture, and you can immediately know the story. The Burning Crusade. You pick it up, you see a massive demon on the front, the Burning Crusade. Are these demons going on a crusade? Are they marching across the land? Would you say that's a pretty accurate description of what the Burning Crusade actually is?
Fairly accurate, yeah.
Brilliant. Demons are coming back. Wrath of the Lich King. There's a guy in the front with a big icy sword. I'm guessing he's the Lich King, and he's probably pretty wrathful. Is that, again, pretty accurate?
Yeah.
All right, cool. You can do this with every single expansion, right up until Battle for Azeroth. You can pick up Mist of Pandaria. Oh, there's a panda on the front. Maybe the expansion's about Pandaria. Maybe that's them. You know, you can do it with Cataclysm. There's a huge dragon on the front. Maybe he's going to cause something cataclysmic. You pick up Battle for Azeroth, you've got a Horde face and an Alliance face fighting. Nowhere in that title or on that box art does it tell you Mayan Incan-inspired dinosaurs.
Nope.
So when I bought Battle for Azeroth, I was actually expecting a battle for Azeroth. And when I started playing it, I'm like, there's a lot of dinosaurs in this kind of South American-themed Inca battle. I had no clue that that was what I should expect.
Yeah. They've definitely dropped the ball with that. I'd even argue Legion to a certain extent. If you don't know about WoW, Legion doesn't mean anything to you. You see Illidan on the front, and the word Legion. It doesn't mean anything.
So let's have a look at the Shadowlands box art. I want to work out, I haven't seen this one yet. So I have, but I just can't remember it. That's how memorable this is. Okay, Shadowlands box art. There is a guy with a hammer and a big pauldron, and he's all kind of like ashen, and there's like lava. Is he Mr. Shadowland?
I haven't seen the box art, so let me have a look.
I'm not even taking the piss. Guys in the chat, someone's just got, no, that's Bolvar. Who?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, that's not the box art, though. The box art is the Spire of Dominion, is it? It's Ice Crown Citadel.
Oh, that's even worse. But I have no idea what that is then. Okay, so who's that guy?
Well, it is Bolvar, but you wouldn't know that, and it wouldn't mean anything to you.
Fill me in. Who's Bolvar?
So, Bolvar is one of the people who was helping fight the Lich King in... I'm going to really dumb this down because you don't know WoW, but he was helping fight the Lich King at the end, and when they killed him, he basically says that someone must always wear the crown. And they don't explain why.
Who wore the crown before Arthas? Because if I remember correctly, in the original Warcraft 3, there wasn't anyone wearing the crown. Was the Lich King wearing the crown? No one, technically. Surely you just picked the crown up. Because you got the sword, didn't you? Was there actually someone wearing the crown in Warcraft 3?
I believe there was always someone wearing the crown.
Okay.
Nezul, yeah, that was it.
Nezul,
because
cool.
the line is there must always be a Lich King.
Okay, cool.
Right? And so when the Lich King was killed, Bolvar took one for the team, took a fat L, put the helmet on, sat in the chair, and then now that Sylvanas removed his crown in the opening cinematic and shattered it.
We need to talk about Sylvanas, because character writing is all over the shop.
Yeah. But that's how that happened. So they were at the top of Ice Crown Citadel. She ripped the helmet in half, and it just shattered the sky, and the Shadow Realm opened up above.
Okay,
that's it.
Cool. Going on. And that's the Shadowlands.
Yeah, that's the Shadowlands, and that's why Bolvar is on there, because he's helping, like, do some shit or another. I don't know.
You know, there's a problem in anime, and this I think World of Warcraft is actually suffering from a very anime-style writing problem right now. You beat the boss. Oh, I was only working for someone else. So you beat him.
Boss.
But I was only working for someone else. So you beat him, but I was only working for someone else. Like, eventually you get to the guy that's at the top. You have to. If you don't ever get to the guy that's at the top, if the organization keeps growing, then the audience stop caring.
Yeah.
And you also have this thing where...
That's what's happened with Sargeras.
Yeah, you say, I was bad, but actually compared to the next guy, I'm good. And then you go and beat the next guy, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I know that I looked bad, but I was actually trying to stop this person. And then you get them, and you're like, well, actually, I was trying to stop... Who's good in World of Warcraft? Is there any good guy?
I was going to say Uther, but he's bad now, I think.
Seriously, Uther's bad.
I think so. People are going to... I didn't write... I power leveled. I didn't read the story. But someone in chat can tell me if Uther's gone bad. The story was shit. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. The story for Shadowlands is shit.
Uther went bad and then went good. Uther sounds like
you've
milk.
Spoiled it for me.
Uther was milk that became rotten and then became cheese. They were like, this is good. It's gone quite bad. Hey, he pulled it around.
It's good again.
It's good again. Fantastic. Don't leave it too long. It'll go rotten and then get mouldy. Uther has like a cheese-style life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Battle for Azeroth. Who was that mother construct in the cave that was in a raid? They were super important, weren't they? I'm sure they're going to appear again.
I know the one you're on about, where it's like the walled off, like Star Wars Force gates as they open and you move through. I don't know. We one-shot her, so I never actually read any of the voice lines. Fair
play. Okay. And we've beaten the Shadowlands. The dragons have come back. Are the dragons bad?
Do you know what it reminds me of? You talking about but that's my boss, and then the boss above. That just reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh! After the first season, where it's like, I've got a blue-eyed white dragon. Well, I've got a two-headed blue-eyed white dragon. Well, I've got a seven-toed red-eyed blue dragon.
Is World of Warcraft suffering Yu-Gi-Oh! Fatigue? Is everything just syndrome? Getting more powerful?
Yeah.
I hope the next World of Warcraft expansion is entirely on motorcycles. That's what I want.
Sargeras 2 Demon Lord Boogaloo. That's what it's going to be.
2 Return of the original guy that's bad. So we've got narrative power creep going on.
Yeah.
Sylvanas? Good? Bad? Irrelevant? Fill me in.
She's like that ex that you keep going back to because you think she's changed.
Right. Gotcha.
And then you instantly realise why you shouldn't have gone back to her.
I see it. Okay, cool. So wasn't there a bit of a thing about whoever wrote Sylvanas had a bit of a thing for her? Like there was a writer accused of having like a bit of a self-insert thing going on.
Yeah, they tried to like project themselves into Sylvanas. I heard about this and it was very weird. Very weird. I don't know any more about that though.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be doing super well. So Sylvanas was bad and then she went good and then she was bad again and now she's good and now the dragons are back. Do we need to care about the dragons coming back, or do you think this will be irrelevant in like 2 expansions time?
I actually think that the dragons coming back is setting up for an incredibly big story arc. So anyone who knows about the Dragonflight from books and like the side quests early on will know how big of a deal they are. So very heavily tied to the Emerald Dream, which is an expansion that was teased a long time ago. It was going to be the third expansion, but because of technical limitations, they couldn't do it then. However, people have been begging for it, and the Emerald Dream is basically Azeroth untouched.
Okay.
Now, think of the possibility from WoW's perspective of an untouched Azeroth. This is going hand in hand with their reset everything kind of thing, because it's in the lore. It wouldn't be an out-of-the-box random, haha, we're resetting WoW. It would be justified that if you go back to the Emerald Dream...
Do you think World of Warcraft has hit a bit of a snag? Because, as you said, you didn't read the story. You just power level through because the gameplay is interesting.
Yeah.
What does an MMORPG, and I can think of one, and I think you'll agree as well, I can think of one MMORPG that has added content for many, many, many years, and people still care about the land, not necessarily the stories that are being told within the land. And I would say that's RuneScape.
Good old RuneScape. Absolutely.
What does World of Warcraft need to do to be a land again, instead of just a vehicle for driving expansions?
It's really funny that you mentioned that, because in our last developer meeting, this is actually the comparison we made, World of Warcraft to RuneScape. RuneScape is so focused on horizontal progression that every place matters and has different level of content in it. You can go back to Lumbridge and do something at max level that you can only do at max level.
Yeah.
You can go to an end game, and this is really it. The locations aren't level based in RuneScape.
No.
Whereas in WoW, they are.
I think in RuneScape, the experience is level-based, but what they've decided to do is spread multiple experiences for various level ranges all over the world. Yeah. So where you start at level 1 is still relevant at level 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way up to 99. And you go somewhere at RuneScape and you do something, and you may need to be level 20 to be relevant, but when you come back at level 90, there's something new. RuneScape, to me, is a world that has adventures for various levels placed in it.
Yeah.
Whereas World of Warcraft seems to be a very linear journey from A to B to C, where when you are at a certain level range, you are encouraged to be at a certain place. And then when you get to the max level, you're encouraged to repeatedly do this. Someone pointed out, I think it was you and me having this discussion a while ago, Cal, in old school RuneScape, Barrows items came out 15 years ago for Barrows items. Torag, Verak, Darok. Yeah, we still know the names. And we still know the names because they're actually still relevant.
Yeah.
Items that came out 15 years ago in old school RuneScape are still not only relevant, but good.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything from World of Warcraft that came out 15 years ago that's not only relevant, but still actually good. Possibly invincible to mount because of how rare it is.
But that's cosmetic, so that doesn't even matter. Because cosmetics will always be relevant.
Someone's just put OSRS didn't come out 15 years ago, and they are irrelevant in the main game. Barrow's armor isn't irrelevant in the main game, mate. Barrow's armor is still a very important step. When is it level 70 you need to be defense for Barrow's armor?
Yeah.
Yeah, 70 defense is a really, really good thing to have.
And some people still use that at level 90 because for certain situations it's really good.
Yeah, if I'm going, tanking in God Wars, having Barrow's armor, I'd be fine with that. Guthans are still really good for AFKing, absolutely. And Swampletics. Cal, you've seen the Swampletics series, haven't you?
I have. I've seen it all the way through. I love it.
I can think of one or two things like that in World of Warcraft. The guy that played the panda that picked the flowers all the way to max level without choosing either Horde or the Alliance.
Yes.
What is it about RuneScape that allows so much content to be made? Because YouTube, MMORPGs, RuneScape dominates it. There's so many RuneScape series of it.
It's because there are many, many ways to play the game. And none of them are right, none of them are wrong. But you can get creative with it. And I think that's the issue with WoW. You are fed down this pipeline that they want you to go down. And you have to, realistically. You'd be insane not to. You're just harming your own experience. But RuneScape, you just do whatever you want. And I think that's something that you can leverage as a game designer.
I dislike sandbox MMORPG games. And, I think that's actually wrong. I thought I disliked sandbox games. This is the weird thing. I thought I disliked sandbox. And the reason I thought this was because the majority of sandbox games I played didn't do anything to help the player find a goal or to set any expectations or to help me get into it. But the more I play it, RuneScape is actually very close to being sandbox.
I would say it is.
You can do it.
It absolutely is.
I mean, you can't manipulate the world and you can't build things, but you can do a hell of a lot, and you've got no choices, and there's no classes specifically. But the reason I think I like RuneScape is because there's so much stuff you can do in it, and there's so much stuff that encourages you, like the quests. The quests are a massive adventure line.
Yeah.
I really would like it if more sandbox games had maybe not quest systems in there as much, but at least direction to take, to go on. It's super non-linear. That's the best way to do it.
That is the best way. That is the best way to put it, and that's another thing that we used RuneScape as a comparison for. We want players to just be able to roam off aimlessly, find an old lady in a house, and start a huge chain of quests.
Yeah,
but meaningful storytelling quests that fill the fantasy of something, right? You want to try and fill every fantasy in a game where you want to be a pirate, go off do the pirate quests.
Yeah.
You want to be like a firefighter in a city that's burning down, go do that. And I think RuneScape's a good benchmark for like freedom, breeding creativity from the player.
Now, talking about if you want to be this class, go and do that quest. I love that idea. I was talking about, class design and quest design with someone for a long time, and I realized that actually Realm of the Mad God did this. I hadn't even played Realm of the Mad God at the time, and I realized it was doing it. So someone said to me, what should I do with classes in the game? And I suggested this. Have some basic classes that characters can start as, and then have class quests. Like, you're a warrior, you go and speak to the warrior trainer, you go through all the warrior quests. When you finish them, you become like a certified warrior. And then you've got a botanist quest, and you go through to the botany. And when you've got top warrior and top botany, you can speak to someone else, and they say, hey, I see you've got these, let's combine them, and you now become an alchemist, or something like that, or a combat alchemist. Yeah. I love the idea of quest lines building on quest lines which unlock extra classes, but those classes aren't necessarily best in slot or, uber powerful. They're just different. They play in a horizontal way, and Realm of the Mad God does that. I think Star Wars Galaxies did that. I want to talk about a game that does that we have to dig into the history of. I don't know how much you know about it. In the chat, who played Dragon Fable? One of the Arctic's games.
I didn't, actually.
Have you ever played Adventure Quest? The old Flash animated...
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah. I honestly think Adventure Quest is one of the most important online RPG games ever made. Adam Bonn, the guy that made the whole thing, I am so in awe of what he has done. Now, I've taken the piss, and I've made bad reviews of both Adventure Quest 3D and Adventure Quest Worlds, but I don't want anyone to ever think that this means I don't respect Adam Bonn the absolute utmost. What do you know about Adventure Quest, Cal?
I know one thing, actually, that many people didn't. Do you know that it wasn't database driven?
No, do tell.
In the early days of Dragon Quest, you could completely modify your money client-side. Everything was client-side.
I have heard of people explaining that, people you're giving yourself max gold and stuff like that. I never did it because I was a kid at the time, but no, I have definitely heard of people doing it.
Oh, I did that.
Give yourself
all
max
the
and
time.
everything.
I sold that gold to people who didn't know it was client-side.
Excellent. See? Hustle culture.
Hustle.
But I absolutely loved Adventure Quest as a kid. It started my obsession with online RPGs, and I thought, here is a game that saves my progress, that I can log onto from any computer. Here is a game that it started that fire burning in me of online RPGs, and Adventure Quest was great. And then Dragon Fable came around, and then Mech Quest, and then finally Adventure Quest 3D and Adventure Quest Worlds. But I was reading an interview with Adam Bonn. I mean, I've read so much about this guy. I am in awe of the things he's achieved. This guy made about 1,000 Flash games
I have heard this.
before settling on Adventure Quest. And he was reading, he made thousands. He was in school and he would go home, and over the next 3 or 4 days, he'd make a very simple flash game of a character moving around, a very simple RPG, a very simple fighting game. He did so much stuff. And finally, he made Adventure Quest and he showed it to his friends, and his friends went, this is really good, put it online. And he didn't think it was great, but he tried it and he put it out there and it succeeded. And I keep telling people, if you want to succeed, do a lot of stuff. Try a lot of
forwards.
Yeah, fail forwards
is the best method to learn game dev.
Yeah.
It really is.
And Adam Bond's, his attitude toward work, I don't know the guy specifically or personally. I would love to chat to him sometime, but his attitude toward creating deserves the utmost respect. And I made a video a while back saying that you need to have 5 things before you need to make an MMORPG. A franchise, money, time, experience. Adam Bond had all 5. Cal, what franchise do you think is going to be the next Adventure Quest, Dragon Fable Online, Adam Bond? What's it going to be next? It might be
League of Legends.
Yeah, might be League of Legends.
Yeah, League of Legends, hands down. Like they've got everything, and now with the Arcane series, they've gone above and beyond. They've got everything they need. I think it'll be that.
Do you think Arcane is a setup for an MMORPG? Because I do, because I know they're making an MMO, and when I was watching Arcane, I was seeing all the stuff that's going to go into an MMO. You've seen Arcane, haven't you?
Yeah. Faction setup, like
transport ships. They even had a line, if this gate doesn't get there, then the wine's going to go off. Okay, cool. So we've got fast travel, fast transport.
I think they already know that they had the foundations for an MMO. Mm-hmm. They just needed to open it up to the non-MOBA crowd. Yeah. And Arcane did that, because I don't like League of Legends.
No.
I really don't. I've tried it and I hate it. But if they bring out an MMO based off of Arcane, I will play it.
Yeah, they have built so much lore into that show already. Super, super impressed with it. So let's just circle back to the World of Warcraft bringing out the next expansion.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy XIV's main story that it's been working on for years and years and years has ended with Endwalker.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think FF14 is going to have to do differently as far as starting a new storyline goes to make sure it doesn't fall into the World of Warcraft trap of here's the next big bad?
I genuinely do not know, because I've seen so many MMOs that have survived fall into that. Mm-hmm. And because they are a linear progression, I really don't know. And they can't just instantly switch up to like horizontal progression without a good reason to. So I think they'd have to go for a good setup, a good change, and while they're changing the story, like shift to horizontal gameplay.
See, people in the chat are saying some great things, and I'm absolutely on board. They're not going back to the next big bad. They're just going back to small adventures. So the next Final Fantasy expansion might not have the world in jeopardy. It might not have a cataclysmic, reality-ending event. It might just be a couple of local villages or local towns in trouble. It might just be... It might be smaller, but more personal. And I think that's a really nice place for a game to be in. It doesn't need to be the next most powerful thing. It just needs to be, we've saved the world, but the world's not perfect yet. Let's go deal with the small problems.
You can only save the world so many times before you start to just see the signs of it repeating. Yeah. Ooh. So they do need to do something.
The Simpsons started off as a parody of the American nuclear family. There are no shows on TV anymore that are the American nuclear family, which means The Simpsons is a parody of a genre that no longer exists, which means it has become a parody, it has become a genre unto itself. Let's loop this back around to MMORPGs.
Yeah.
The Simpsons has ran out of things to parody. Have MMORPGs ran out of stories to tell? Has Warcraft ran out of stories to tell?
So I think in a way yes, because there's the typical trope of fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. And by them parodying the D&D trope, I don't know, whatever old text-based game you used to play, they've done all of it. Mm-hmm. like fantasy has been fulfilled. There is no more fantasy that they can pull from. So they're now doing a mix of repeating that same fantasy and trying to introduce their own. But people only play WoW to fulfill a fantasy that they couldn't in a text-based or D&D game. But there is no previous version of this new fantasy. They're making it.
You know how with Game of Thrones, the first 5 seasons of the TV show followed the books pretty much spot on, and then they ran out of books, and so they got TV writers in. And the way that TV writers write stories is so phenomenally different to the way book writers write stories. TV writers write stories for the here and now. They write it for the character-based plots, and they write it with plot armor so no one can die. But book writers write about the land, they write about the political struggles, the ideological struggles. They tend to look at the overall journey of the world, whereas TV writers look at the journey of the characters.
Yes.
Do you believe that after Wrath of the Lich King, maybe after Cataclysm, possibly up to Battle for Azeroth, the World of Warcraft writers were pulling from the Warcraft lore, both Warcraft Orcs and Humans, Warcraft Tides of Darkness, and then Reign of Chaos and the Frozen Throne? They were pulling from that war, and by the time they ran out of that lore, they had to start to write their own, and it just wasn't as deep.
No, I agree with that. That's absolutely part of the issue. I think there's so many compounding issues, like the borrowed power, the running out of material to work from. There's just so many, like the talents changing to the point that they're useless. Killing community. That they sandbagged that game so hard in the span of 2 expansions. I think they keep trying to find which one was it that was the issue, but they've been overlooking the fact it was all of them.
Okay. And this actually links quite nicely to the idea of The Simpsons. World of Warcraft was a response to EverQuest, because EverQuest was quite complex and difficult to get into at the time. EverQuest and Ultima Online had this feud thing going on. World of Warcraft came out, and at the time, World of Warcraft was actually the casual game. It was much easier to get into than EverQuest. It was much more beginner-friendly. It was much faster. It was much more cool. It was pushed.
Yeah.
And then, as it's gone on and on and on, do you think World of Warcraft is now the Simpsons of MMORPGs? It's popular because it's been popular for so long. It's so well known. It's almost grandfathered into culture. And just as The Simpsons is now telling stories with established characters for the sake of telling stories. I mean, recently there was a Simpsons episode where they showed a flashback. And the flashback was Homer and Marge and Chief Wiggum and Dr. Hibbert in school. But they were in school in the year 2000. And they were doing a play about the Y2K computer bug that was going to be big. But we've already seen flashbacks during the year 2000 to The Simpsons when they were in the 1990s or the mid-1980s, which means The Simpsons now has absolutely no continuity whatsoever with time frames. Was Homer a child in the 90s or a child in the 80s or a child in the 2000s? We don't know anymore. It's now just messed up.
Yeah, you know, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. Yeah.
It's so messed up, man. World of Warcraft is now a vehicle for pushing gameplay. No one cares about the plot, it pushes gameplay. The Simpsons is simply a shell of itself for pushing disconnected stories featuring characters we know and we've already established and already joined up to. Is World of Warcraft The Simpsons? I mean, I'd never thought of that comparison before. What do you guys in chat think? What do you guys think, Cal? Cal, is World of Warcraft The Simpsons?
Do you know, I think it might be, actually. I'd never thought about that, but you're spot on.
We're spot on, man. We came to this conclusion. The chat's spot on.
Yeah, everyone's right. Nobody can be wrong here.
You know what?
No, I think you are right with that. Definitely.
Someone in the chat just said, "Wow, Josh, you're really smart." I'm not, okay? I'm dumb enough to know that I need to talk to people smarter than me. Callum knows way more about development than I will ever know. You guys in the chat right now, you've got so many more opinions and so much more knowledge than I've got. All I'm good at doing is bringing a lot of ideas together and trying to make them sound dummy simple. Because if I can't make them sound dummy simple, I don't understand them. It's the best way to look at it. So I think we, unfortunately, have just discovered that World of Warcraft is The Simpsons.
It's a sad time to be alive.
What a great
really
way to, brilliant way to end the podcast.